This was a policy. Donald Trump cared one thing about Ukraine, which was how does it affect his political future? And I can say that every other senior national security advisor, Mike Pompeo, Mark Esper at Defense, all of us felt that we needed to bolster Ukraine's security and were appalled at what Trump was doing. And finally, it got resolved in the near term on the security assistance, but the significant negative consequences for Ukraine, I think, were real.
One last question. And in your memoir, you wrote that President Trump wanted to leave NATO in 2018. How close did that come to reality? And we have just a minute left.
Yeah, I had my heart in my throat at that NATO meeting. I didn't know what the president would do. He called me up to his seat seconds before he gave his speech, and I said, look, go right up to the line, but don't go over it. I sat back down. I had no idea what he'd do. I thought he put his foot over it, but at least he didn't withdraw then. In a second Trump term, I think he may well have withdrawn from NATO. And I think Putin was waiting for that.
This is John Bolton, Trump's former national security advisor, admitting that he believed that had Trump gotten reelected, he would have withdrawn the US from NATO. And just to underscore the danger of such a move, the only reason that Russia is having such issues right now is because NATO is completely and totally united. United in imposing sanctions, in cutting Russia's banks out of the financial system, in pressuring its elites, and making things that are as difficult as possible so that the people of that country understand the impacts of the misguided decisions of that one man. If Trump had withdrawn the US from NATO and the US never participated in the collective actions against Russia that we're seeing right now, the impact would have been completely muted. This economic warfare only works because the West is unified. Trump would have undone that. The dangers posed by the possibility of Trump having removed the US from NATO cannot be overstated. Bolton even acknowledged that the only thing Trump cared about with regard to Ukraine was how it helped his own political future. And that was made abundantly clear by the fact that when Trump had the opportunity to help Ukraine protect itself amid mounting Russian aggression by supporting military aid, what did Trump do? He withheld that aid, $391 million, in an effort to extort Zelensky for dirt on Biden. That was his only priority, thinking about his own political future. And yet, if you want to talk about shamelessness, here's Trump only days ago praising himself for getting lethal aid to Ukraine.
If you remember, I was the one that got the anti-tank missiles into Ukraine. Obama gave blankets. You remember when I first came in, they said Obama gave nothing. He gave blankets. If they didn't have those anti-tank missiles, they wouldn't have any chance. They would have been wiped out on day one. It's very bad now, obviously, but it's very hard.
I'm no expert here, but when you dangle those anti-tank missiles over a desperate President Zelensky's head in exchange for a political favor to such an extent that you get yourself impeached, then I'm pretty sure you lose your privileges of going on Fox to fillet yourself for a job well done. And by the way, that's not the only way that Trump undermined Ukraine while bolstering Russia. Remember, Trump abandoned our NATO allies on the world stage. He stood next to Vladimir Putin in Helsinki and claimed to believe him over our own US intelligence agencies over election hacking claims. When Russian officials claimed that in fact it was the Ukrainians who hacked the 2016 election, Trump administration officials took them at their word and promised to investigate those clearly false claims. Trump softened the GOP's platform on Ukraine. He suggested that Russia should be able to keep Crimea. The list goes on, but the point is clear. Donald Trump was more than happy to do Putin's bidding. So he can pat himself on the back for delivering javelins until he's blue in the face, but given the fact that those javelins were wholly dependent on Zelensky helping Trump, I think it's abundantly clear how much or little credit he should get. In the meantime, I'll say this. Regardless of your political affiliation, regardless of whether you're a Democrat or an independent or a Republican, if you value democracy over autocracy in the world, then you should be grateful that Joe Biden's in office right now. Because if Trump was in charge, there is no reason to believe that his endless efforts to carry water for Russia would have subsided, and the implications for the world would be devastating. But luckily, because he lost, democracy now has a fighting chance. To see more videos like this, click the subscribe button right here on this screen. And if you want to support my work, subscribe to my podcast, No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen. I cover the most important stories each week, and my guest is always one of the top political figures, including Vice President Kamala Harris, Jen Psaki, Elizabeth Warren, Pete Buttigieg, Nancy Pelosi, Katie Porter, Cory Booker, and so many more. The podcast link is also right here on this screen, so give it a listen and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.